I think for a lot of people, it's papering over the void. Right? You have this void in your life because there's unmet potential, unmet interest, living in misalignment with the things you care about, right? I mean, a lot of people, this is the classic sort of catastrophe of life, right? Social media, and before this, it was other things, right? There was other intoxicants or other sorts of distractions. It's a way for some people of essentially putting a screen over that like gaping void. And it like just makes it bearable enough that you can kind of go on with life. I think we underestimate the degree to which our problem with digital distraction is not the internet. It's not our phones. It is specific products and services that are engineered at great expense to pull you back to them. When you take that away, the internet's not that interesting. Like, I don't have a cycle of sites to go to. You know, I can check my email, but I don't really know where else to go. I mean, I could go to the New York Times, I guess, but then you've seen the articles, right? They change it once a day. There's just not much. I've set things up so there's not much that's that interesting to me. We didn't have smartphones till really relatively recently. This is, 15 years ago. So we were just used to this until yesterday, essentially, that there's just periods of time where you're out of touch. Like you're at a restaurant with someone, you're out of touch until you get back to your office. Like we were okay. We weren't plagued by emergencies that led to disastrous results because we couldn't hear about it right then. You go to the movies, like you're out of touch, right? And be a couple hours till you're in touch again. And so it's not something that's affected me as much. So maybe I'm working without my phone nearby. A lot of people have this response. They begin sort of catastrophizing, like, what if this happens or this or that? And I'm thinking, I survived before that. My parents survived without that. My grandparents survived without that. I don't worry about it as much, and some of this maybe is just, this doesn't upset people as much as it used to. The fact I don't use a lot of these apps or have my phone, but it really does upset people, right? There's, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? And I don't know how much of this is just maybe I'm oblivious and how much of this is people backsliding explanation for why they do need their phone, why they do need to look at it all the time. It's not just the accumulation of time you spend looking on your phone. It's also this network switching cost, right? Because like the phone is very good at inducing a network switch, and that's an expensive, time-consuming, energy-consuming neuronal operation. I'm going to switch my focus of attention from this to that. Like, we can't do that in 2 seconds, right? That's a hard process. It takes a while. It's why when you sit down to work on something really hard, you have that feeling of, for the first 15 minutes, this is terrible, and then after like 15 or 20 minutes, you sort of get into the groove. I always assumed part of what's going on is it takes a while for your brain to really start marshaling. Okay, so what semantic networks do we need to start activating here? Oh, we don't need this. Let's inhibit this. We're not doing that anymore. It takes a while. So what happens then when you have a lot of these quick checks to social media, you're jumping in on email back and forth, is you have this disaster, catastrophic pileup of aborted task switches happening, right? And so it's not just the total time you're looking at, let's say, email or social media. It's the 15-minute window you have to add around each of those checks in which you have this cognitive disorder. That really adds up. And then you realize, oh, there was no time during my day in which I was more than 15 minutes away from looking at something that induced a network switch. The data I like to cite, which was looking at email and Slack checks and knowledge workers, this came from Rescue Time, the software company, the median average interval between checks was 5 minutes. It's the median, and the mode was 1 minute in this data set. So it was like, we are checking all the time. That means you were never in a state then in your day where you don't have a confused cognitive space, where you don't have partially you were switching to this task, but then you switch back to this task before that finished. But before you could fully lock in on this task, you look back over here. And so you're spending your entire day in this state of cognitive disorder, which is going to be reduced cognitive output, right? So you get rid of that. I mean, I always say, like, one of my advantages is not that I'm doing anything smarter. I'm just avoiding sometimes the dumb thing, just slowing other people down. You get rid of that and you feel like you're on the world's best neurotropic or something like this. Like, oh, I'm just doing this thing. I'm doing it pretty well. Now I'm done. Why this didn't even take that long. So, I mean, I think people underestimate what's going on here. I think for a lot of people, it's papering over the void. Right? You have this void in your life because there's unmet potential, unmet interest, living in misalignment with the things you care about, right? I mean, a lot of people, this is the classic sort of catastrophe of life, right? Social media, and before this, it was other things, right? There was other intoxicants or other sorts of distractions. It's a way for some people of essentially putting a screen over that like gaping void. And it like just makes it bearable enough that you can kind of go on with life. And so it is true, if you just rip it out, you see the void. And that's really difficult, right? I mean, because I did this experiment for one of my books. I ran an experiment with 1,600 people, and they all turned off all their social media for 30 days. I recruited them from my newsletter readership, so they weren't university students. And it wasn't formal research. It was, I put out the call, right? So this is not randomly sampled, right? But I put out the call and I said, here, I'm going to walk you through this. And then I got a lot of information back. So people reported back how it went. And this was like the number one thing I heard was it's really hard at first, right? And so who are the people that succeeded for 30 days versus those who didn't? The ones who didn't succeed tended to just try to white knuckle it. Just be like, I don't like how much I'm using social media. I'm just going to stop because it's bad and I don't want to do a bad thing. I'm just going to hold on to the table with white knuckles. They wouldn't make it 30 days. The people who did succeed followed my advice to incredibly aggressively pursue alternatives in those 30 days. So it's like, go learn new hobbies, join things right away, get like really structured about your day, get into exercise again, learn how to knit again. A lot of people said, oh, I forgot how fun libraries were. Like you can go into this building and like all the books are free and you can just grab whatever. And it's okay if you don't like the book because you didn't have to pay for it. Going out with friends again. I'm okay. Every week I'm going to have, we're going to have drinks with this person. And every Thursday morning, I'm going to go running with this person. The people who aggressively tried to put in place a more positive alternative through self-reflection experimentation, they lasted to 30 days and beyond. Right. And so then I came to realize like, oh, I see what's happening here is you have these unmet needs. These tools can give you sort of a simulacrum of meeting them. I'm a social being. I need to be connected to people. Well, I'm texting and like doing comments on social media. It sort of touches that a little bit, just enough that you don't feel hopelessly lonely, but it's not really fulfilling that. I have a need to like see my intentions made manifest concretely in the world. Humans want to do this. Well, I'm, posting these things and people are responding. It's sort of this simulacrum of real creation. So it's like kind of satisfying that just enough that it's not just intolerable, right? And so what happens is if you remove that, you have to actually fill those things the right way. So now I'm not socializing on social media, but I'm going out of my way to sacrifice time and attention on behalf of other people. I'm feeling the social void in the right way. Now I don't really feel like I need to go back. I'm actually making my intentions manifest. I'm learning skills and building things. Now the sort of pseudo construction and collective attention economy of social media, I'll post this and you'll like it, I'll like this. I don't need that anymore to fill that void.